Okay, Alice, are you ready to go get started? Paul Jones, can you hear us?
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Great. Ben Stanley?
Hear you as well.
Okay. Are we ready then, Alice? Okay. Welcome, everybody. We'll begin our today's commission meeting. And as we do with everything, I will begin with a prayer, reading our thought, and a pledge of allegiance. And we ask someone from the audience to provide the prayer, reading our thought, or the lead us in the pledge of allegiance. Do we have a volunteer for either one of those?
I'm standing, so I'll give a prayer if you want.
Thank you, Rudy. And someone else to provide the pledge of allegiance? Yes, sir.
All right. Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful that we could meet together today in this wonderful place. We're grateful for the moisture we've received here, for we need so much of it, and we ask you to send us more, Father. But we are grateful that we could have an open government, that we could be free, we can make decisions that are in the best interest of our people here. We are so grateful, Father, for this wonderful county in which we live and the beauties that are here and the wonderful people. Please bless us this day that we will be able to make good decisions and that we will be able to do so without contention, that we will be able to work together for the betterment of the county. Please bless us to constantly do the best things for this county. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please state your name when you come up.
Repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. The first item we have is the recognition, after which we'll do a work session, and then we will go through the regular agenda. Actually, before we begin the work session, we'll go through the regular agenda, look at the items that we think we can put as consent, meaning we approved all those items and put them into consent. Once we finish that, we'll then go to work session. The recognition, though, has to be postponed 1 week. Those that are to be recognized could not all be here. And so yesterday they coordinated and said they would like to wait 1 week on that one. So we'll push that one off. Is there a need to discuss any more on this? Okay. So we'll continue to number 1 for 1 week. And we'll do the work session as soon as we finish going through the consent items. So let's begin by looking at items number 1 through 10 in the regular agenda. And which of these do we need to hold for later?
I don't have any.
None? Just a note, number 9, we have to cancel that commission meeting on the 27th of April due to a conference that the commission is required to attend out of the city here. Any items between 11 and 20?
Number 17.
Okay, 17, we'll hold that.
Commissioners, Rob Moore, County Attorney's Office. Number 18 is approve or deny. Are you looking to approve that one or deny that one on your consent?
We're going through the process. If there's no question.
I'll recommend that we leave it on consent as approved.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine with that.
We'll do that. I'd like to just have a brief touch on number 19, so I'd like to hold that one. Okay, any other, then we'll start with 21 through 30.
We need to continue item number 30 till May 4th.
Okay. Continue item number 30 through May 4th. And 31 through a long one this time. 31 through 41.
So number 34,
We need to table that one.
probably need to hold that one for a date. Do we need a date on that? Are we gonna? Because it says filed March 28th. My concern is that I just don't know what date we would be setting that for. Should we just hold it? We can just hold it,
Is that?
or should we?
Yeah, let's just hold it.
Hold it for
We'll
close.
let's just hold it.
Okay. Hold it for close then.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I think it's proposed that the hearing be held today.
Oh, the hearing's going to be held today? Okay.
We'll hold it for that.
Okay, that's fine.
So we'll hold it then. Okay.
Okay. I didn't know if we were setting a date or if we're, okay, if it's going to be held for today's, and there's somebody here for that then.
I'll be representing our side. I don't know if Jessica Miller is here or not.
Oh, okay. Okay, very good. That's good to know. So we'll hold that one. Can we also hold number 35?
Yes.
And then I also recommend that we table number 38 till after closed, since we're talking about a lease.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. On table 38. Do you have any others?
No.
Commissioners, can I take you back to 25? That's also approve or deny.
Yes.
Similar to that was number 9, which I think you've already discussed that you're going to approve the cancellation of that meeting.
Yes.
But on 25, you can determine whether you're approving or denying that request.
Richard,
Yeah.
is there any issue with approving on consent?
Mm-hmm.
Item number 25, is there any issue approving on consent? You're working on it? We're good? Okay, they're good with it. So we
Okay.
can just move to approve
Yeah.
on consent. Okay.
Okay. So all these that we have said that we don't have questions on,
Closed? We need closed.
I'm sorry.
So we need
Yeah.
item number 1.
Yeah, I forgot about the
42.
close items. So 42, I understand 42, we need to hold 42, 43, and 45 for closed session. We don't have any items for 44.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
So we'll strike 44.
And hold 42,
Hold
43,
42, 43, and 45 for close.
as stated right after this.
As stated, yes, right directly after this meeting.
Absolutely. That sounds
All right. Alice, did we confuse you well enough?
No, you did very good. Okay, I have us for the recognition, continuing that 1 week for April 20th. And then as far as the other agenda items, I have us holding number 17, 19, continuing item number 30 until May 4th, holding 34, 35, tabling 38, and then as far as closed meetings, we're going to hold as stated 42, 43, and 45, and striking 44.
Any questions? Okay. So those have all been moved to consent. The rest are going to be held for regular agenda discussion, which moves us into the work session. And the first one is the presentation of community reinvestment area project known as Patriot Station by the American Fork City Redevelopment Agency. Please, Mayor.
Brad Frost, Mayor of American Fork City. It's a pleasure to be here and to actually visit with you all at once instead of just one off. But so we're here to answer questions. We've given you a lot of information, and I'm trying to think if there's anything that has changed about that. It really hasn't. Maybe this most significant change on our end is that we have been through the Alpine School District Board, and they approved that for us last week. And so you are the second agency we're looking to get approval from, and then we'll go to the water districts from there. But if outside of that, I don't know how much more I can add, but we're here to answer questions. We know this, the figures pretty well. I have David Bunker, our city administrator, here as well. But we feel like it's a great project. It's a great project by itself because it supports transit and brings a lot of people. I have found out through UTA that out west, Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain, they are going to build parking lots, and they are going to have regular bus service from those parking lots that will feed into the front runner station in American Fork. So they are trying to pull people out and use that to maximize the front runner. That's new information that I learned out even just the last couple of weeks as well. So this is all roads lead to the front runner station, and we're just trying to make the very best of it we can. And not just to ride it, but as the new component is to live there as well. And an affordable housing component that's pretty unique in itself. So
That was going to be my one question. I know we've discussed it, but can you maybe give us a little more of an outline of the affordable housing element to this?
yeah, I'm going to have Dave go into a little more detail about that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you. The affordable housing piece, within the CRA, there's $7.6 million set aside for an affordable housing program. And the affordable housing program is based on the adjusted gross household income. And the affordable housing piece would be available to school teachers and law enforcement. And so those are a couple of careers that are very difficult to find great and retain great personnel within those areas. And our thought was to help them achieve a housing component there. It can be limited to the purchase of a home or rentals. If the county's preference is for purchase of a home, we can definitely make sure that that's included. And so that would be $15,000 in down payment assistance for every unit. And so that's what the affordable housing piece would entail.
So if I could, and thank you. I know we've had some great conversations through this. It was important to me as we worked down through it that housing, low-income housing, is all different stages, right? I mean, you go from rental. I did that, and I came out of college, and I was renting. We went to a home, and it was kind of a garage that was made into an apartment. We've all gone through those cycles and looking at affordability. And so it was important to me that that the county portion of this is not just on the rental side, and I wanted to demonstrate the reason why. We give about a 45% tax break or tax on the assessed value right now, and even those commercial that are renting get that, and because they get that 45% reduction. There's an incentive to build more, which is great. But I wanted to also incentivize home ownership, which I think is the American dream, and I support that. And so I'm very supportive of the county's portion of this, as we talked and negotiated with it. That the county's portion is restricted to home ownership through actual purchase, even if it's purchase of a condo or a home or whatever. It's a purchase price. Because I think that gives us the stratification when it comes to renters and homeowners, and it gives us a different mix in there, and I think it's healthy for that area.
No, I appreciate the couple. I think we've met 2 or 3 times on this topic, and I appreciate the strategic vision that you've developed to create this synergistic concept, because you're involving now Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs more aggressively than we have previously talked. So that's a huge value item, and they've already touched on the other areas, so I appreciate the direction this goes. I don't have any particular questions beyond that.
Yeah.
Do you have any others?
Well, we do have a couple that we have to work out.
Yes.
And I know that Rob will be working down through those, because there's a couple blank spots. And I don't know if we necessarily need to talk about that now, or if we just fill those in. I'm sure we'll look at our past ones when it comes to some of those fees. Rob, I don't know if you got comment on that.
I do. So just a couple of comments, if I could. This is Robert Moore, Utah County Attorney's Office. I did at your request, review this interlocal cooperation agreement, made changes. I've sent those to you. I've mentioned the changes to the mayor and to Mr. Bunker, that there's really just a couple of changes. One is the homeownership component I put in here. The other component is that the county's tax increment will be used for infrastructure only. That's a common thing that we've often done with these interlocal cooperation agreements. I also put in here an administrative fee, which we've been charging over the last few of these. And I recommended the fee that we used in the last one, which was $10,000. I think we've been using that fee annually as an administrative fee. And that's in here. And so I'm prepared to forward this to them now if you're ready for me to do so. Unless you have further questions you'd like me to address. There are some other minor changes that were made for clarifications, but mostly it was just those additional changes we talked about.
So my only concern is if we're limiting ours to only for the purchase of these, I mean.
For housing?
Well, just the portion in here that talks about the program funds set aside to assist Utah County Sheriff's employees will be used solely for down payment assistance rather than rental assistance.
Yes.
I think if they want to rent, we should give them the opportunity to do that. I don't think that, I mean, I understand.
We have the whole other side. So it's more than.
Right. So as long as they have an option, I don't want our employees to only be able to use assistance if they rent.
Yeah, it's
I mean, if
totally
they
open.
buy.
It's totally open. You correct me if I'm wrong, but
Okay.
you've got $7.6 million in there.
Okay,
Our
so we're not
portion of that-
restricting our employees to
Oh,
only
no,
being able to.
no.
It's just that our portion will only be used
Our
for.
portion,
Okay,
yes.
I just wanted to clarify that. I wanted to make sure we weren't restricting them.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm fine with that.
Our portion of the 7.6 million, which I don't recall how much that is, but it's not the full amount, of course.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah, it's
that's fine. I just wanted to make
significantly
sure that we weren't pigeonholing the public safety employees.
not at all.
Okay, then we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mayor.
So, just by way of information, next week, we have one of those meetings that might take us out of town. Certainly David will be out. I might be leaving a little bit early to the ULCT conference. Do we anticipate this being on the agenda for next Wednesday for the meeting? And do I need to be prepared to be there online?
I mean, you could.
I'm going to say you're welcome to be here, but once we have all the questions answered, it should be just a matter of making sure that those items are there. And if they are, and you've already seen them from Rob Moore, then you don't necessarily have to be here.
And I've just sent them over to them just now, and so if they're happy with them, or if they have any concerns, they can contact me,
Okay.
and we can address those concerns, and we can put that on your agenda, hopefully with a consented, that both parties are in agreement. And it
You
should
know,
be a consented
Mayor,
one.
if it turns out that that there is some sort of controversy with it, we'll just extend it a week so that you can actually be here in person.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't see
I
there
can
to be a
jump
problem.
online. It's, we'd
Yeah.
like to get it done, so appreciate it very much for your time. Okay.
Thanks, Mayor. Okay, on to our second work session item. Consider adopting a development agreement between Utah County and Eagles Landing, Utah Holdings, pertaining to the completion of phases 1 and 2, the constructions of phases 3 and 4 and 5 of the Eagles Landing Plat A Mountain Home Development located near Birdseye, Utah. We have someone here to speak to that.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Paul Washburn. I think most of this development agreement has been worked out with Mr. Scribner, who's out of town this week. He's asked me to stand in his place. I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner, let me jump in for a minute. Maybe a little background might be helpful, because I don't know that this has been going on, this project, for 20-plus years now.
Yes.
And so this is a project up, Eagles Landing is up by Birdseye area of Utah County, so as you're heading down to Fairview. And it's on the left-hand side, you're driving down to Fairview. Back when it was approved back in, I can't remember, 1999 or 2000, that time frame, there was a number of phases. It was a phase development that was supposed to, and there was a number of things that were supposed to be done during that development. Anyway, what happened was the developer went bankrupt or no longer was involved. We went through 3 or 4 developers. I think we're on the 4th one currently. Some of the requirements from the prior phases have not been completed. And so the only really, and this developer's come in and wants to finish the project, which I think the county would be happy for that project to be finished. There are roads that were partially done, not all the way done, other things that were partially done, not all the way done. So the developer came and approached the county community development office and to try to finish the project. It's already a recorded plat, so this has been an approved project for some time now, but the infrastructure is not complete. And so that's what we're here talking about. The development agreement is a pathway going forward that allow them to finish the project, but also to complete the development, and the infrastructure in particular. And really, the only things that are at issue in my discussion with Mr. Scribner are probably two things. What's remaining in phases 1 and 2 that are not complete, that need to be complete? And there's not much, but that's one of the issues. And the second issue is, in the original agreement, the developer was going to provide a fire station for the development. Now, previous developers have already provided a 5-acre parcel and created Eagles Landing Fire Protection Special Service District. And that was created some time ago. And if you didn't know this, you were the 3 board members of that fire district as the City and County Commission, which we're not here to address that really today. Subsequent to the approval of this original development, Indianola area, which is a little further down towards Fairview, opened up their own fire station. And I think, is Kirk here today?
It's back there.
Yeah. So Kirk's been looking at this, and there's a suggestion that we might be able to work as a win-win situation here. With the Indianola Fire Station is about 6 miles from this development. And it is mostly going, but not quite all there yet in Sanpete County. And so Kirk's been working with them, and there's a discussion. That's the other component of this agreement that we're working on, is what that fire requirement's going to be for this developer. Originally, it was a fire station, but in some ways, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have a second fire station 6 miles from each other when there's not that many homes. So my discussion with Mr. Scribner was purchase a fire engine, which we talked about before, type 1 or type 2, plus some fire equipment, and we have a listing of that. And we're working through that very issue. So really, the 2 issues outstanding with that little bit of background is phase 1 and phase 2, what's left, and also the fire requirement. And the idea with the fire requirement is to join forces with the Indianola Fire Department. It's actually Sanpete County, but with the station in Indianola, put that fire truck in the Indianola, and then probably contract with them and work through that.
Have the special service district contract with them.
That's one option. I'm looking through that, whether it's better do that or better have the county to contract. Because if we have the county contract, then we could reduce our contract with Spanish Fork City for that area. And you could have Indianola cover all the way to Thistle, for example. So there is some benefit to the county for this. And that was not in place when this development originally approved way back when, and now it is. So there's a lot of that, and I've kind of hit the real top surface of this. But this is a long-term project that's been going on for, like I said, over 20 years, and these folks are trying to get a completion out of it. And their things have been moving, and part of the reason why they're trying to hurry is because they need to they're scheduling asphalt, and it's difficult to do that. And so they're trying to get that scheduled because there is the secondary road that's going to go in there. And there are a number of things they've got to fix from previous developers too. And those are contemplated in this development agreement.
So a couple questions for me. And then thank you for that, Rob. I guess the other option is that we actually build our own fire station there, which kind of goes contrary to what we do in the county. Our structure of fires is usually contracted out. Our wildfire we have, and so it'd be a little bit contrary to what we're doing. But it would also allow for more control on our side if we did. But then as I'm working through it, it would cost more it costs more in the way of a tax because we'd have to support it. We have 5 acres up. Is it 5? I guess
Yes.
5 or 6. 5.
5.
We have 5 acres up there right now. That something like that could be put on. And so your community, what's your thoughts on that? I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on kind of the 2 different options that are out there.
Let me address that if I can. This is a long project. I think it was originally approved as in the early 90s. I think it was a victim of 2001 first time around, and what wasn't a victim then, 2008 did. And we now have a new developer that's coming in and trying to put this back together. Right now, the option of working with the town of Indianola and Sanpete County make a lot of sense. They have a structure in place. There's empty space in the structure. We can provide a fire truck that works well for both communities. Building a fire station on the 5-acre parcel, I think long-term is obviously the best solution. But it's not something that's going to be built there solely to protect this one project. It does the whole Bird's Eye area, and it is a big area. I think Mr. Moore mentioned that there's a special service district of which you are the board of directors of and have been, and it probably makes sense. I guess as I look at it, it probably makes sense now to go ahead and take advantage of the opportunity of getting the fire truck and being able to utilize the facility that is in Indianola. But I think long term, you need to maybe start looking at creating some income out of that special service district. And I don't know how quickly that area will, develop. It certainly has developed a lot more the last few years, but without having to create a major tax increase, a few dollars with all the homes that are there, the ones that are being created over a 4 or 5 year period could create a lot of funding for an on-site fire station if that's the direction that the county decides to go. If there is no development, then again, the arrangement with Indianola still seems to serve the purpose.
So the developer right now, are they the ones that would be paying for the additional fire truck and the
Yes.
equipment?
Yes.
So there is no tax increase that
No
would be
tax
coming through the
increase for
special
that at
service
all.
district
Right.
currently.
That is
If we
correct.
were to go, even if we were to go and say, okay, let's have Indianola go ahead and contract out.
That is
and
correct.
they would have the truck in their facility. It'd be paid for by the developer to be used, I'm sure, on both sides.
On
Because they're
both
going to use,
sides, certainly,
however they
certainly.
contract,
Yeah.
they're going to use it both ways.
Yes.
And then the maintenance of that going forward, though, the developer's not going to pay for it because they're going to, after they develop, they're going to walk away, and then it comes back to the special service district to keep that truck and the equipment maintained.
Well, I think that's ultimately what's going to need to happen. And again, it's not just this development. Bird's Eye, there's a lot of homes out there. There's not only just within this project, but in surrounding projects. And it seems fair that if you're being protected, there ought to be some responsibility for that. I think what can be done with the money the developer is putting in now is get the fire truck, get the necessary equipment, and probably several years of operation.
So they'll take care of the payroll of maybe one person is full-time and then take care
they're
of volunteers.
I think it's a volunteer fire department, but there may
Somebody
be
there
an
all the time, then.
administration fee that goes to Sanpete County.
So, just so you know, and Kirk can probably address this better than any of us, but as I understand it, Indianola has 3 certified firefighters right now. They need another 3 at least to run a truck that's going to do structure fire. And there are those that are in that community who are willing to be those certified firefighters. And so, but they have to go through the training to do so. So that's part of what we're looking at here. Just so you know, I was looking at the minutes way back when Gary Herbert was one of our commissioners, and he talked about that based upon what they would assess against these properties, they anticipated back in 2001 making about $64,000 a year for the fire district to be used for ongoing maintenance and those kinds of things. But obviously that's 20 years ago. I don't know what you end up doing with it now, but for right now, I think what we're looking at is this is an alternative that was not available in 2000 and it is now available. And in addition, and back when this was development originally contemplated, I think the developer thought it was a much smaller number related to the fire station and the build of a fire station, and it probably was, because that was 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
And now that number is probably, it might be in the seven figures. It might be $1 million or more to build a real fire station with real fire trucks and go, all those things that go along with that. And hopefully it's not that much, but it could be. And I think that this is kind of a way to look at what's the right thing to do here that'll protect that community. And we have something we didn't have in 2000, which is the Indianola fire station and engine there. And it's as I understand it from Kirk, it's they have an empty bay and they're also double length bay, so they actually have ability for more expansion. So there's some real positives there.
And so your time of service is about 25 minutes now. I remember we had those emails. Yeah, you bet. And so by doing this, we're going to cut that down to about 6, which I think
Between
is
6 and 10 minutes, yeah.
6 and 10, and
Yeah.
Let's let Kirk
because we were
answer.
going back and forth, Kirk and I were.
Oh, sorry.
Kirk Bertelson, I'm the fire marshal for the county. So right now, Spanish Fork provides our service up there, and their response time would be a minimum of 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
And from they're 8 miles from the Indianola station down to the Eagles Landing turnoff is 8 miles.
It's 8, okay.
And so they would have an 8-minute response time from the time they leave the station, which they're a volunteer agency, so they're probably 4 minutes before they get to the station. So we're probably looking at a 12-minute, 15-minute response time, depending on day or night.
Plus, they have EMT and the other
Right.
services that can.
They don't have any medical services there now. That's a plan for them for Indianola, and I talked to 3 different people there, and I got 3 different timelines. And so one of them is a month away, and one of them was 6 months away. And so I'm hoping sometime during 2022 that we see that, because I think that's a great benefit, and especially if we do end up contracting with them. I think that's a great benefit for these folks that live out there. So.
Okay.
Any other
Sounds like
questions?
better coverage.
So just to confirm with Kirk, you've provided to me a list of supplies that would be needed. And
Yeah.
that area, the estimate for that was probably about $78,000 for those supplies.
Yeah.
Plus, in addition to that, to the fire truck. And that we don't have a real estimate on, other than I know we've talked about numbers between 50 and 70,000. So that's probably what we're looking at here as we negotiate this number a little bit, is what to cover both what supplies are needed to outfit the truck, the engine, and also the engine itself.
Correct.
So.
And the special service district this is under right now, in the way of the contracts that we have with Spanish Fork, if we take those away, is it enough to contract the other direction, or is that a shortfall? I don't know, maybe I'll explain it this way. So right now, we're paying Spanish Fork for the contract for the
Right.
structure fire. If we reduce the structures back in the contract with Spanish Fork, that's going to be a savings in that whatever account that we're paying for on that.
And I look at it as a wash, because if we reduce it back and give it to the service district, then the service district would get that contract money.
Right, and so that should be about the same as
Yeah.
contracting with
It would be
Indianola.
the same.
The wash.
It'd be a wash because of the formula that we use to
Okay.
figure that out. So the formula wouldn't change.
Okay, thank you.
So if we move forward with this contracting with Indianola, do we retain that 5-acre property so that in the future, if more structures are built, and it becomes feasible? Okay. I was
Yes.
saying- okay.
I
So
would.
I just wanted to ensure that, because I think that's what makes sense, is contract with Indianola now while developments are being made. And then once those developments get made and we have a higher population, then in the future, we could build there. Yeah, okay. just
I
wanted to
will
make
say
sure.
also, it was always contemplated, and it's not necessarily in the agreements, it was in the minutes, that once this development got so big, it was supposed to become a city or town.
Right.
And that's what always is supposed to have happened, but obviously, we're 20 years down the road and it has not happened yet. But that's what's supposed to happen.
But retaining
remember
that
the
5
exact
acres for
number.
the future, if it does,
Yeah,
it allows
yeah.
them to be
This will
able to
help
build
with that.
something.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, I would support that. Okay.
So it's not on for your approval today. We
Just
want
a
you,
consideration.
yeah, I'm not sure you've ever really spent a lot of time with this development. That's why I wanted to put it on as a lower session, and then we can put it on a future agenda.
So the
perhaps next week.
5 acres that has been set aside, will that be retained then by the special service district? Will that be land that is owned by the special
already
service
is.
district? It is.
Correct.
Okay.
Currently. It was deeded back in 2001, I believe.
Yeah.
So, yep, that's part of it.
Okay.
Great.
Any other questions?
I have none.
Nope, that answered mine. Thank you.
And there are other residents of that subdivision that are here. I don't know if they want to speak to anything, but. Okay.
Anybody want to speak to this?
Here's your chance.
Okay.
Okay. We're
So, do you want to?
Please come up.
Bob Buckley. I am a general contractor. I'll be part of this development as putting it in place with my expertise in construction I'm a third generation contractor, so I've been in construction my whole life. What we started on this is that the true meaning of what we looked at on doing this was trying to protect the residents up there. I live up there. I built my house there and finished about 2 years ago. But when we started looking at doing this, we had the true meaning of looking after the residents. When my partner, Roland Robinson, I get a little choked up about this, but Roland Robinson, both of us were in this looking at, because he's going to be moving up there too. So he has a piece of property. I'm going to be building his house. So when we were looking at this, we looked at a few people that were actually looking at wanting to do this development. We interviewed a couple people that actually had to look at wanting to finish this. And we found a person, his name is Matt Malouf, and he had a true heart of what he wanted to do in this. So we had the look, and we had the heart to find somebody to be able to have the same aspirations we had, to be able to finish this. This project has had a stigma on it for a long time, and a lot of people don't believe that it's going to be finished. And we have a team now that has the right mindset to be able to get this finished. And I think you guys need to believe that in us, because we're different. I know it sounds crazy to hear that, but this is happening because we actually have gone to the people up there and figured out how to get an HOA started. We have gotten a county road bladed in, and we got a petition on that with all the people up there, 25 homes up there. So this is something of this area, what's coming forward in the future, knowing that I'm a builder since 99, for what I've seen, how Harriman grew. I lived in Harriman. This is coming. People are moving in. With me also having a real estate license background, I also have. I get people talking to me of where they're moving. People are moving out of the bigger cities to get into more rural area, and they're looking at wanting gardens. They're wanting some chickens. These are the lots, and these are the areas that people are going to. You talk to Sanpete County, which I have their building department, and they're slam packed right now with people heading to Sanpete County. This is something that you're going to see within the next 5 to 10 years is going to be explosive. And this subdivision that we're in, we looked at this, me and Roland, looked at this as a lighthouse for the beacon of Birdseye, to be able to make sure that this project that was done wrong now is done right. And they have the expertise. We have the guy that does the financing, Matt Malouf. He's knows how to deal with trouble assets. He knows how to turn them around. In the construction industry, Roland has been an appraisal in Utah, and he's one of the premier appraisers before he left. For what, 35 years? 30 years. and he knows what he's looking at. He's appraised the subdivision a good 5+ times throughout the years. I really believe that the commission needs to look at this. The people up there are counting on you guys to make sure this gets done. I'm one of them. And I don't want to see what happened with the fire that went through there, about 3-4 years ago? Don't want to see that happen and see what going on there, knowing that there's going to be a lot more residents coming that way, and there's even preliminary talks of other stuff coming. So I ask of you to please help us to be able to get this project moving in a timely manner. Me being in the construction industry, I have a window that's closing. And that window needs to be stayed open as much as I can. And trying to force that window open, I need you guys' help to get this done. So I'm done with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, and I think we absolutely agree with you. That's why I wanted to make sure that the 5 acres was retained for the future. I think we're in an area now where a lot of businesses are willing to let people work from home, and with Starlink available, people can get broadband, and I think we're going to see a lot more people moving into areas like that. So I agree that we're on a growth pattern there for sure.
We have a really good internet service out there from Centracom, and I'm on it myself as a fixed wireless. And we got a lot of people asking about that, of buying lots. Can we work from home? How is the internet? That's one of the main questions we get out there.
And if that problem is solved, people will come. So I agree. Thank you.
With talking with Kurt and others, and I think you'd know this because this is kind of behind the scenes stuff. I had emails back and forth with options. And I don't feel this from the county up here, and it's not definitely not from myself, but as that development in the agreement that we had prior, the county could say, you know what, we want you to build a fire station up here, and it's going to cost you $1 million. But I don't sense that the county even has any appetite for that. And so that's, I think, this option, coming from Kurt and others, of let's see if we can partner, still keep the 5 acres in place, is probably a signal to you that that's what you're talking about is exactly what the county's trying to do, is to find a way to get this development done.
Yes.
And in a way, because part of the reason why it was such a hard asset that was there was because of that stigma of you're going to have to fork out $1 million to build a fire station up here. So I think that you found that willingness. I feel it anyway with our commission as we're looking to do something to get that development done.
And we're like I said, we're just trying to fix what's wrong and make it right. And we've been working with the county pretty extensively for almost a year now. And we just we are looking at you guys for the leadership to be able to push this together and let us grow what we know can be a beacon up there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this particular item?
Do you want me to go ahead and put it on for next week, or do you want to?
Yes.
Yeah,
more time?
I would.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
If you think you're ready, if you've got enough details worked out, yeah.
We'll finalize the development agreement terms, but yes.
Okay, then I'm ready. Yeah.
So good. Okay.
One thought on that: do we do that? What's the steps in that? Do we do preliminary negotiations supposedly with Indianola to kind of bring it as a package, or do we do the first development agreement and then we look, at negotiations with Indianola? I'm just wondering what your thought process is with that.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have it as a package.
It would be,
is what I'm saying.
nice. That would probably take a lot longer, just so you know, but yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. I'll reach out to Kirk and I'll have more discussion on it tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We're now on our regular agenda, and we're looking at item number 17, adopt a resolution approving changes to the 2022 to 2024 CIP or capital improvement plan. And I asked Rudy to give us some highlights on that.
Good afternoon,
Okay, Alice.
Commissioners. And my name is Rudy Livingston. I'm the County Budget Manager, but I'm also the Chair of the county's Capital Improvement Projects Committee. A few weeks ago, we came to you, and unfortunately, that was the day where Commissioner Lee was not able to be with us. And so we discussed the items that were on this report. As I previously mentioned, we We have a requirement to meet with the commission at least every other month to talk about the status of the capital improvements program. But this one, we have a few extra items that we're going to need to discuss as we go forward. So we made one slight change to the schedule that was previously uploaded from the last meeting, and that was because in our capital improvements, our capital projects committee meeting yesterday, we became aware that there was a slight change to the historic court. Well, there was a change to the amount of funds that were allocated for ARPA projects and related to the historic courthouse. We originally put $100,000 in for the projects that we're going to be moving forward, and that amount that was approved for ARPA was $300,000. That has not been approved for the CIP, and so that's something that we would have to do. So, excuse me. Last time we were together, we talked about the changes that were being requested to the CIP plan. And these are in attachment I to the agenda item. We had a STAFA upgrade for the HJB, which originally was estimated at $120,000, and it's now been scoped out a little bit more fully, and the cost is estimated to be $357,000. The North County North County Campus Master Plan was originally estimated at $90,000. The new estimate is now down to $30,000, so that was a reduction of $60,000. The security fencing, the record storage facility was originally estimated at $1 million, and as they've gone and done a little bit further work on design and everything, that's estimated to be $400,000 more at $1.4 million. The security fencing for the security center was originally estimated at $1.25 million. That has increased to $2 million. Some of that is related to the cost of materials, and some of that is related to increased size of the security building that they want to put out at the security center.
Does that also include, though, the lights and cameras?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, because the original estimate was just a fence, but they've now added including the wiring for the cameras and lights.
Correct. Thank you for reminding me of that. I mentioned that last time, but that's exactly right. There's more security features there that will provide better security for the facility. The jail medical remodel, we had approved $5.1 million for the jail remodel. As the design work began and as there was some consultation with the team out at the sheriff's facility there, it was determined that it would be advantageous to increase the scope of that project to include a mental health facility there at the jail. And so the cost of that, if you were choose to do that, would be an additional $4.3 million. The first part of that has been approved by ARPA, so this would either be ARPA or another source of funding if the commission so chose.
But it could be ARPA.
It could be ARPA, absolutely.
So Rudy, on this, since the when you're talking about those that it could be ARPA, but our ARPA process, we haven't gone through the ARPA process on some of this additional stuff.
Correct.
So it'd be really hard. I mean, we still need to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. So how do we have that conversation with this, with the ones that we haven't got we haven't gone through the ARPA process with?
Well,
the additional.
Go ahead.
Let me take that. Richard Nelson, Public Works. Commissioner, to answer the part of your question, the additional scope for the jail medical has been submitted to the ARPA team, Peter Brown's team, with the additional funds in there and the request
and the explanation of what's different.
Explanation of what it's for. So it's in the hopper somewhere. I don't know where it is through the process, but it is.
I know it's in the hopper. Yeah. I just we haven't gone through the process on the ARPA side, and now we're looking at passing something on the commission side.
We're just trying to get the two to marry up.
We haven't done that yet. I just wonder if the ones that we don't have the ARPA process finished yet, we probably should hold off on until we go through the process.
And we're in design on the jail medical, looking at the entire process because it all goes together. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what your time frame is on the ARPA process on there. We do have I think it's 5.1, is that the original number?
Yeah, that one. That one's already been through the ARPA
right,
process.
and that's been approved through the ARPA process. So I would think that maybe you approve this contingent on that ARPA approval coming. I think we'd done that on some earlier ones.
That's fair enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it
that's
could be a
fair.
combination of ARPA, and it could be mixed in with the regular capital project funds that
Correct.
we have set aside.
Yeah, I mean, it
So-
could be funded, straight out from the capital funds that
So
we.
although we get an approval today, it would be contingent
Contingent
upon
on-
the approvals
Sure.
lining up.
Similar to what we did when we approved the 2022 CIP
Yeah.
program.
Or similar to what we did with the well up Provo Canyon.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want the process to be as clean as possible
Yeah.
as we're going through it. instead
We
of
want to have them
jumping
meshed up.
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, the more deviations we have, the more, things that we have to clean up at the end or later on. So, yeah, so we could approve that addition to the jail medical. It's contingent upon approval of ARPA funding. And in all honesty, they're going through the process right now, scoping it out, doing the architectural work and design work and everything. The actual build out wouldn't be happening immediately, so they could still proceed with that work and scope it out.
So the drawings are not yet done. How clear or how accurate are the numbers thus far?
I think Glenn's the one that's been heavily involved with this, so I'll let him answer that.
Glenn Tanner, we're still early. I mean, they're not going to have design drawings for about 6 months.
6 months.
So right now, I'm going to say those estimates are pretty accurate as to today.
Right, so in 6 months, if inflation rate keeps going, this
It
number
could-
might go up
It
quite a
very
bit.
well could adjust, correct.
So we can build in a percentage on top of it, but it may still not be enough.
And that's the concern. That's why I hate keep delaying. The more I can put pressure on them and be the squeaky wheel, we can get those design drawings going. The faster I can move this along to get it to the process of bidding, which we were going to bring back to you at that time with an accurate estimate at that very period of time.
We can get you a bullhorn.
I like it. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Okay.
And one of the nice things about this process of coming back every couple of months or so is because we can make course adjustments throughout here. And if those designs came out to be a little bit different price, then we would adjust what our estimate for the project is. So it's something that could be approved. The next item on here is the PPE building, which was originally scoped out at $2.5 million. Originally, that was intended to be basically a warehouse, and so design changes have come about, making it actually into functional office space for the emergency services team out there, and providing office space, and I believe there's training space in there as well.
Yeah, I went out there and talked to the team and the undersheriff, and what they have in concept is that what they've been using as the EOC is a temporary, is a in-process emergency response center rather than an office space. And that's where we have fire, we have sheriff, we have police, we have other agencies converging there to coordinate responses to the emergency. And so it's not ideal for an office space itself, and that's why they wanted to add these office spaces into this PPE building, which we're actually renaming, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for the pilot program that Lieutenant Quitner's going to be moving with the emergency management, we don't have any place to put them.
Right.
And so there was some increase, some different ideas on this particular PPE building. The bulk of it still will be, that's what it will be used for. We're just taking maybe a quarter of it up front and adding some office space.
So once again, if it's PPE and EOC, all of those qualify for ARPA.
Yeah.
So that could all be ARPA funds.
Yeah. And the price of construction has went up, obviously, since
Right.
we kind of got this ball going.
Right, since
a year and a half
2020 when
ago.
we originally asked for it.
2020, but things have went up for sure.
Isn't the EOC right now primarily housed where the dispatch used to be, and then we built that building, and then we moved
Yes.
the dispatch out?
Yeah, dispatch went across the street and have their own building. And so the old dispatch is our EOC, which has been inhabited by the COVID thing since it started. And I look at this summer, we're going to have wildfires We know
We're going to
that.
need an EOC.
And we're going to need an EOC,
Yeah.
not an EOC filled with people in their offices. EOCs are for emergencies. That's what they're for. And
It's basically a command center. It's the military has the same thing. They're either mobile or they're pretty semi-fixed on ships or on the ground.
so the new building necessarily won't. We're not going to like put another EOC over there. Could it have some capabilities? Let's say in a conference room, if we have a Woodland Hills fire and an Elk Ridge, and we've got to have two different, or maybe we have one up north, an American Fort Canyon, or wherever, or a flood, or who knows, whatever. We can separate, let's say, city officials, city fire, whatever the case may be. We can use those, but we don't. Our EOC is just clogged up right now, and we don't. It's not being used for what it's supposed to be used for.
Right.
So
Well, and anytime we add people, they need a place to sit.
they got to have a place to work. Yeah, and
They need to have a computer,
we have
and a
no
desk,
place.
and a phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, and having a satellite EOC like our
She was
sheriff
behind
was
you.
talking about is very useful. Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
All right, there we go.
Peter Quinn here, Utah County Emergency Management. One thing I just want to make sure we don't overlook is throughout the course of the pandemic, we've acquired a tremendous amount of resources for future use. The resources that we've used for the pandemic, that we've also used, we've acquired with the ability to use these for future resources. Our footprint has grown through the pandemic. We have structures and trailers and generator systems, and we need a place to put that equipment. That's why we're currently leasing that off-site storage facility. So it's not just PPE and people and bodies, it's also our increased footprint, which makes us better prepared to service our community and help in an emergency. So it's the tremendous amount of resources as well.
Yeah, it's ancillary, I know, but they had recently responded to a call in Juab County. Is it what's it, the security center?
It was, yes.
Yeah, and their AC or heating system went down for a time. It was getting down to 40 degrees. They called them, and they already had staged equipment to go down there and fix it. So they hooked it up on trucks and drove down, and reportedly got it from 40 to 70 degrees within about an hour.
About an hour.
So that was an example of what they did with their equipment.
And the other side of this, as he alluded to, is that we've been renting space for this stuff, so it would take that off of the cost for the county as well.
Sounds great.
The
Okay.
rent has been
Well, I've got,
$2,600 a month.
Yeah.
and the supplement ARPA form has been submitted for that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one makes perfect sense.
The next one on here is the Wildland Fire Building. They originally scoped this one out at $750,000. The price tag is looking more like $1 million for a $250,000 increase. Those are just some updated costs, and there wasn't any scope creep on that one at all. That's just pure cost, because that original quote was about 2 years ago, and so the building costs have gone up significantly. We've also taken 2 items off of the list here because we felt that they did not meet the real criteria of capital projects. And so we're requesting that we remove the programming for the electronic encounter forms, which is a really important project. It's just not a capital project, so we'll have to handle that in a different way. But it's a really important project, and that is also ARPA funded, I believe. Is that not right, Patrick? Yes, that is also ARPA funded, and it will just go outside of the CIP umbrella.
Where's that at?
That is on on attachment I or 1. It's number 21-.221.
I'm looking right at it.
It's almost down the bottom there. So that's going down. So we're taking $215,000 out of what we had planned for CIP.
It'll stay from ARPA funding, but it'll just move to the different
Correct.
list. Okay.
And the other one that we've taken out is the 500 kilowatt generator replacement, which we originally had in there, but with further discussions with the public work team, this is really something that should be maintained under the building maintenance fund, and they've been accumulating money for it. This is an upgrade to what they had, so it's more money, but that can be accomplished through that fund. And then the last item on here is the one that we added today, and the change is here. We had the items on there for the Historic Courthouse. Originally, we had this item at $100,000. when when the request was submitted for ARPA funding, that was increased. So there's a total, there was 100 and a 200 and it increased. There were two pieces to this already in the CIP plan, and this increased the total cost by $200 or $200. That would be nice, wouldn't it? $200,000.
Let me just clarify on that one. There's actually two different line items in the CIP. The total between the two line items is $500,000. That's what the ARPA approval was.
And we originally had 300,000 between the two of them. So that's the change there. The rest of these are status changes, things that were received the ARPA approval and other things, as well as we have some changes in the second page of this shows changes in the process where the individual projects are at.
So are you saying that on the status changes, you got HVAC in the historical courthouse and the air handlers in the historical courthouse, which is part of the HVAC system?
Correct.
And those are, what are we doing with those? Are we just changing those? Now we're saying that now we're bumping that up to the HVAC in the amount change that we have above?
Yeah, I mean, what this section really is that previously we didn't have the ARPA approval on them when the original plan was adopted. So we did receive the ARPA approval, and we're just showing that these items have been, because some of these two particular ones were on the original CIP plan from last year, but ARPA approval was not on there, and now they have been approved for ARPA funding at the courthouse. And the other ones, we have some items in there that we were holding off on the final approval for them because the ARPA funding had not been approved as per the commission instructions. So now we want to move them on there as the ARPA approval has been granted.
And they're part of the 100,000 or the
No, the top two are part of that one we just discussed, the $200,000 increase.
Okay.
The other ones are strictly a status change for ARPA versus not ARPA. And because they were ARPA approved, the commission also, when the 2022 plan was adopted, there were a few items in there that the commission was holding off on approving until we got the ARPA approval on those. And so once it changes into the ARPA approved status, then those projects are actually approved on the CIP plan.
Okay.
Great.
It's been very helpful. The anxiety I have is, as you already mentioned, is the inflationary rate.
Yeah.
The backlog of trying to get design work. Don't know if we can import any designers that you guys would support or could trust, but just anxious to get these going so we can get ahead of the inflationary curve.
Yeah. I mean, we see a couple of items on here that they bid us already because we waited a year to get them
and so
going.
we're just anxious to get this going. And so if we have to get additional people brought on to help that process, we certainly encourage that to happen too.
Maybe just a comment on that. We did an RFP last fall for architectural services. That's the design work you're talking about. We had 4 firms that submitted. We've done contracts with all 4 of them. One has since declined to do any additional work. So we've got 3 firms that are currently working for us, and it's all the ones that applied when we put out the RFP. So
we might have to import some.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution as stated in number 17, contingent upon the ARPA funding or other funding.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Rudy.
you, Rudy, and everybody. Okay. We're at agenda number 19. I asked IT Director Patrick Warwood to give us an outline of the highlights of this proposal. Patrick?
Thank you very much. My name is Patrick Warrow. I'm the Director of Information Services, Information Systems Department downstairs. The Security and Acceptable Use Policy, well, the current name basically hadn't been updated in quite a while. In fact, since it had been updated, the climate of technology and the threats associated with the use of technology is quite different than our policy really reflected. So me and my staff worked hard over the last 6 months or so developing an updated policy, and then we worked closely with Human Resources and the Attorney's Office and got some input from the Commission as well about its final form. The purpose of the policy itself is threefold, kind of explained on the first page of the document. But one is to really understand that it is the responsibility of everyone who works for the county, who volunteers for the county, who's an elected official for the county. It's all of our responsibility to protect the security of our systems. And largely, the largest threat we have is that anyone who has an email address has an open door potentially to a bad actor from anywhere in the world. So what the policy does, it focuses a lot of time on passwords and how you never share passwords and how to properly and responsibly handle your email and suspicious emails when they come in, and the steps that you should go through if you see something or should be aware. It also outlines a security awareness program that we're implementing this year that we will require every county employee and volunteer and an elected official to participate in. Basically, it's an online training class, and everyone will have to do it every year. We'll change it up every year as we need to, just to make sure that before you click that email, you think twice. Before you click on that image that says it's Microsoft wanting your password so it can implement its latest update, you don't click it because you've been drilled into you that, hey, I better call IT first before I click anything like that. And that's really what this is, what the policy is about.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. So this is.
So I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution as stated in number 19 on our agenda.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay. And we continue 30. And we're holding 34 and 35. For those, we need to go into closed session? No, just.
Public hearing.
No, I think 34, 35, you can discuss here. It's 38 that you tabled for closed session.
Okay. So we just open now for a public hearing on 34. The Grandma Appeal hearing for Jessica Miller, Grandma Appeal filed March 28th, 2022.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners, this is Paul Jones. I placed this item on the agenda at your request. Just to give a quick introduction, Ms. Miller submitted a grandma request, which will be put into detail here momentarily. It was subsequently denied by Utah County staff. She has filed an appeal with the Board of Commissioners. And so we're here today on her appeal. The board noticed up the hearing appropriately, provided the parties notice, and we're here on a hearing. Normally, and of course this is up to the board, the county would introduce, Mr. Beck here probably would introduce the situation, circumstances, and all that, and then the appellant would have a chance to respond and kind of go that way. Of course, it's up to the board. So I'll leave it
I'll
up to you
follow
now.
your suggestions unless you have something else.
Paul, will you just outline the course of this? That this is, the deliberation part. It's not necessarily that we're not making a decision. We just kind of go through those steps too.
Right, yeah, thank you. So from here, the board has 5 days to issue a written response. So you'd have the hearing, you're under no obligation to enter a decision. You'd be allowed to deliberate amongst yourselves over the next 5 days and issue a decision in writing provided to Ms. Miller and to the county within that 5-day period. So.
That includes Saturday and Sunday too in the 5-day?
No, it's 5 business days. So you'd be looking at a week from today.
Okay.
Yeah. That decision letter would at some point come back on commission meeting for approval, probably for ratification because of time constraints. But.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
And I'm assuming this is Ms. Miller here. Is that right? Okay. Just want to make sure you're here.
So we'll hear from the civil first, and then a response from Ms. Miller then?
Adam Beck, Utah County Attorney's Office in the Civil Division. Commission, thank you for taking the time to hear this. So the Government Record Access and Management Act, also known as GRAMA, in Section 63G2-2012 specifies that all records are public unless otherwise expressly provided by statute. Records that are not public are designated as either private under Section 32 and 33, controlled under 34, or protected under 305. In the protected section of GRAMA, in 63G2 305-10A, it states that the following records are protected if properly classified by the governmental entity. Records created or maintained for civil, criminal, or administrative enforcement, purposes or audit purposes, or for discipline, licensing, certification, or registration purposes, if the release of the records could reasonably be expected to interfere with investigations undertaken for enforcement, discipline, licensing, certification, or registration purposes. Additionally, under the protected section, it states that documents that are drafts are protected unless classified as public. Now, Jessica Miller submitted a GRAMA request, and this is her request. The initial contact report detailing a police response to Maple Lake Academy. She gave the address for a medical issue on January 16, 2022. I would also request any other police records that would be public at the time related to this event. So just to summarize, she's asking about an event that took place at a place called Maple Lake Academy. And she's specifically asking for the initial contact report. Now that document is specifically defined in GRAMA, and I'll go over that here. It's in section 103.14. An initial contact report means an initial written or recorded report, however titled, prepared by peace officers engaged in public patrol or response duties describing official actions initially taken in response to either the public complaint about or the discovery of an apparent violation of law, which report may describe, and it lists out 6 subsections. The date, time, and location and nature of the complaint, the incident or offense, the names of victims, the nature or general scope of the agency's initial actions taken in response to the incident, the general nature of any injuries or estimate of damages sustained in the incident, the name, address, and other identifying information about any person arrested or charged in connection with the incident. And then lastly, or the identity of the public safety personnel, except undercover personnel or prosecuting attorney involved in responding to the initial incident. So there's a lot there. But that is what initial contact report is. And as it spells out, it doesn't have to be titled initial contact report, but those are the materials that would be in the initial contact report. So that is not a document that the county has in its possession. We don't have a document, however titled, that contains just that information. The county does have an incident report. Now, the incident report will have that information in it, as well as everything else that has to do with that investigation. The incident report will have interview information with victims or witnesses. It's going to have information about medical examiners and information about, medical examiners' reports. Information about the toxicology reports. There's going to be the results from many tests or lab results or whatever it may be. That's among many things that could be in an incident report. The incident report just contains the bulk of everything. It does need to be noted that in Grandma, in section 2018, it states, in response to a request, a governmental entity is not required to create a record, compile, format, manipulate, package, summarize, or tailor information. And in this case, we did not create a record. We only had this one record, and that is one of the reasons why we denied. As far as the ongoing investigation, so I guess let me just say that we also denied the request under the case was an ongoing investigation, and I identified that statute as well as the report. The incident report is in draft phase. It's not finished. So to those 2 points, I spoke with Detective Flores, who is the detective on this matter, and confirmed that the investigation is not complete. When I spoke with him on Monday, he said that as I was speaking to him, he was adding information to this document. So what that means is, at the time of Jessica Miller's request, if we had given her that document, it would be a very different document from what we could give her today. And if we gave her the document today, it would be a very different document than what we would give her when the investigation is complete. It is common during the course of an investigation for a report to be changed.
Substantially or minor?
I mean, throughout an investigation, there could be material changes. There may be a break or a different lead or something that could affect the investigation. Yes. To that point, Commissioner, I do want to point out something that Deputy Flores said. With investigations, I believe most investigations, when it's finished on their side, they bring it over to the attorney's office to be screened for possible criminal charges. It's my understanding that here in the next few weeks, this case will be brought over for possible to be reviewed by screening. I don't know the likelihood of criminal charges. I'm not involved in that. But
a few weeks being 3 weeks, 6 weeks?
I believe he told me next week. So
Oh, as
maybe,
early as a week
maybe
from
2 or
now.
3 weeks. But I don't want to give anything firm because there could be changes. Again, the investigation isn't complete. So, so it is requested of the Board of Utah County Commissioners to uphold the denial of Jessica Miller's request, as the county does not have an initial contact report. The county only has an incident report, and the county is still involved in this investigation, and that the report is not complete.
Who responded to the, which agency responded to the call?
So it's my understanding that this was in the county, but Spanish Fork was involved in the investigation as well. But it's our deputy who's the detective on it.
So to that point, then, the Spanish Fork is the lead investigating agency?
No, you
on
said it
this?
was our deputy.
I believe it's Utah County.
Our deputy.
Yeah, it would be our
But
report.
Spanish Fork is still conducting an investigation to provide the additional information?
I couldn't confirm if Spanish Fork is, but I believe at this, based off of my conversation, I think it's Utah County that's working it. Yeah.
So a couple questions for you. And just for clarification for me as I'm thinking through this, do we have an initial contact report?
I reached out to the sheriff's office, to the records personnels over there, and they told us that we do not have a contact report.
So they're just so it's just being called an incident report, which you're saying is the whole broad, and there's not segments within the incident report, because I could see an initial contact report, then I could see an investigation report, I could see
Right, like why would the initial contact include the witness testimonies? Like why wouldn't that be a separate document?
I'm just trying to figure this. I don't understand that. If we're saying it's all an incident report, even the initial contact, I'm just trying to figure that out. If we don't have that, we don't designate that, we don't say what it is.
Right, and I mean I'm not aware of a statute, and maybe there is. I'm not aware of something that requires a law enforcement agency to make that. I just know that what we have in our possession is just
the incident
report, and it just goes through the whole investigation and spells out everything. Again, it'll contain that information because it is, a fairly comprehensive report, but it's not. We don't have a document that just contains that information as detailed by statute.
Okay. So detailed by statute is kind of a key word then that you're focusing on, is that we don't have to have that?
What I think the point is the reason why in the statute it says, however titled, so that we couldn't, instead of changing if we had an initial contract report, we could change it to beginning contact report, and then we don't have to give it out.
Right.
It doesn't matter how it's titled, as long as it has this information. It would be an initial contact report.
Okay.
Any further questions for me?
Yeah, is there a reason that we can't redact the information, the other information beyond the information that would fall outside the scope of the initial contact report? Like if there's other information that is pertinent to an investigation, is there a reason we can't redact that?
Well, I mean,
like witness names, witness statements, if we're still in an investigation, I can see that.
I mean, we're not required to, and this is a quite a large document, and so if we were to redact everything but this, we'd just be redacting pages and pages. It wouldn't be a simple redaction.
So I guess I don't understand that, because it would seem like
black markers
the
not that
initial
hard.
contact report would go to a certain end, and then you'd start an investigation, and it almost seems to me like, maybe I could be wrong, but it almost seems like chunks of time.
Right.
I mean, I don't think the initial contact report could go on for 5 days. Seems like, it only go on for that
Right.
period of time.
That's kind of what I'm feeling too. Maybe I don't understand the nature of the document. Do they just have, is it a Google Doc that they keep adding to?
I was able to see it, and what I can say is that as I was going through it, there was obvious places where there'd be like a row of X's because more information needed to be added.
Right.
Going through it, I wasn't going through it looking for redactions the way that sounds like you're proposing, but it was obvious that throughout the document there's things that they were planning on adding. When I spoke with Detective Flores, there had been some reports that had just come in, and so all of this needs to be added to it. As far as I'm aware, I don't see it just a simple, this part is the initial contact report and then everything else is not. We'd have to go through and find the information that would be initial contact report and redact everything that would not.
Because redaction usually just takes out suspects or those under suspicion for this or that, and to keep their private, personal their names and in some cases locations private, while the meat of the investigation is still retained.
Yeah, that would likely be something that we would redact. If there's medical examiner information, that would be something that would be really sensitive, potential like medical records. And that's one of the reasons why we wouldn't want to disclose that to Jessica Miller.
Yeah, and if we were to release it would have to be with a bold type across interim review, not complete type of thing. It could change whole direction in its content if we were to release it at this point from where you describe it. Potentially,
right. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I'd like to listen to Jessica on it. It is confusing for me though, because I could see an initial contact report being, we were called out on this day to this area. This is the deputy that was called out, and we made contact with whoever, somebody in charge and somebody else in charge, and that's it. That could be initial contact report to me, and I'm trying to figure out how everything else gets rolled into the whole report is kind of my struggle.
Yeah. I'm struggling with that too.
Ms. Miller, would you identify who you are, and who you represent?
Hi, my name is Jessica Miller. I'm a reporter at the Salt Lake Tribune. As I mentioned, what I'm seeking is what's called an initial contact report. And Commissioner Lee, it's exactly what you just said. It's a police officer comes to a place because they were called or for whatever reason. They say, I came here, I saw this, I talked to this person. At the initial point of contact, I'm not asking for the entire investigation. I'm not asking for a medical examiner report. I'm only seeking what is considered under statute to be this initial contact report. And Grandma is pretty clear that this is a public record. 63G 23013 reads, the following records are public: chronological logs and initial contact reports. It's very clearly stated that this is a public record. It would be incredibly unusual for a police department to release an entire police report or investigative file during an ongoing investigation. That's not what I'm seeking, but it is common and routine for police departments in Utah to publicly release initial contact reports. These are reports that my colleagues and I receive regularly. I've received them from Brigham Young University Police Department, St. George, Provo, Salt Lake City, Murray, American Fork, Garfield County Sheriff's Office, the Utah Department of Corrections, West Jordan Police Department, and American Fork Police Department. I don't see why the Utah County Sheriff's Office should be treated any differently. The Sheriff's Office has made no argument as to why they should be an exception or why this incident warrants increased secrecy compared to dozens of initial contact reports I've received in my career, from everything related to prison violence to sexual assault to general misconduct. Additionally, the State Records Committee has frequently ruled that initial contact reports should be released even when investigations are active or criminal cases are pending. 2 cases I wanted to highlight. There's one, Seth and Miller versus Murray Police Department, where we had actually sought a wider range of police reports regarding a nurse who had groped several patients, and we did not get all of the reports, but we did get the initial contact reports. And it was a very similar situation to this, where the police department had said that they did not keep initial contact reports, and what the records committee opted to do was to order them to release the information that would be public. So either through redactions or say, the first 2 pages contain this information, and so we're going to give you these first 2 pages for now. So this is something that the Records Committee has addressed. I'm sure they've probably done it on other occasions, but for me, I know it's something I've personally had to work with the committee on. And then similarly, there was another case that was also mine, Miller versus Provo City and Orem Police Departments, where I was seeking access logs for a BYU police sergeant who had been accessing other agencies' police records. And they had ruled that an access log was considered an initial contact report for the purposes of grandma. And so it doesn't always have to be titled initial contact report or be labeled as such. If that information that is in there as defined by the statute is in that report, there's workarounds by limiting the document or by doing redactions that we can do that still can follow the statute and have the records be released while protecting the ongoing investigation. And I understand once the sheriff's office finishes this investigation, I would be happy to file my records request again and seek the entirety of the report. Obviously, what I'm seeking right now is just the initial contact report as a way to get information. We're dealing with a girl who died at a facility for a teen treatment facility, and this is of utmost concern to the public as to what happened to this girl in this facility. And I believe it would be appropriate at this point to release the information that's in the initial contact report while still maintaining the integrity of that investigation.
Would that include redacting the girl's name?
I believe so. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the name is always redacted. I mean, she's a minor. She's a minor.
That was my concern.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So you'd be fine if the report at least kept her anonymity and her family's.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, like I said, I would agree to her name always being redacted, even in the final report. I mean, we're talking about a young girl who's a minor so yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So, I don't understand. So I'm just gonna. What would you get out of this? That you have an officer's name and a contact of, and I'm just making it up because I don't know. So, but you have an officer that responded, and they say, "Here's the time that I responded, and when I went there, I talked with so and so and so and so." And I mean,
it's hard to say what I would find in a record I haven't seen, right? I'm not sure what would be in there.
I haven't seen it either, so I'm trying to see what.
Yeah, so there has been some information released about this particular incident through the Office of Licensing, who's the regulatory body that oversees these treatment programs, and they have said that I want to be clear here, the licensing department has said that this girl died as a result of failing to get necessary medical care. And so I think that there's a lot of question as what does that mean? Like, what did the officers see when they showed up? Had this girl already died? Did they perform any sort of life-saving measures? Did they see where was she when this happened? I think that there's some details that I would hope to get in the initial contact report that way, but it's possible I also wouldn't. I've definitely done this before where I request an initial contact report and I look at it and say, well, there's nothing different in that the public information officer didn't already tell me. And so these are very routine requests that we ask for pretty frequently, and sometimes it yields information and sometimes it doesn't, but we don't really know until we ask for it.
It's kind of a research process or a process of discovery. You're looking for facts and minor facts or large facts, and to at least establish a direction you're going to go or not go with some particular topic.
Exactly. And with this case in particular, the Maple Lake Academy has appealed the Office of Licensing's determination. And so I think understanding like what the police saw and what actually happened and having this, an entity that's not directly involved in licensing or appeals, and understanding what they saw is also important here, as you said, to find the facts of what happened in this situation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because I think that's where we can step a little sideways, from the initial report of just the facts of, as soon as we start making determinations based off of licensing and everything else, now there's a certain amount of judgment that starts to come into it. But I mean, I personally can see, an incident report that is pretty much black and white of here's the officer, here's the. I can see where that, according to what I've read in Grandma anyway, it seems to be appropriate.
Yeah.
So, obviously, we're not making a decision.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much.
It was very helpful, though. I appreciate
That was very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comment from those here, any in the public? I only see staff members, I think. Okay, then I guess we'll close that one. Okay, thank you very much. And we've tabled 38, or excuse me, 36.
We're on to 35.
No, I'm sorry, it's 38.
We were on to 35, the property tax.
Yep, so we got that one to do next. Okay, so we're on to 35. I've begun to go through this list. I have not finished it.
I apologize. You have to see my face for another 30 minutes. Haddonback County Attorney's Office.
So, Adam, if maybe I can ask a question. Did we continue some of these? I thought we might have continued some of these.
Yes.
There was a question, and we felt it was probably appropriate to have all three of us here, and that discussion had to deal with the PO boxes.
That's right. That's right.
There's a number of them that are on here, so
it should be the first handful on here. And if I recall correctly, one of the things that you wanted staff to look into was whether in years previous they had paid on time, if this was a recurring issue.
And maybe and Commissioner Gardner, I think that you weren't here at the time we had that discussion, and so maybe to kind of bring us all back up to the speed where we're at from the last meeting, and then some of the things that we asked for would be appropriate.
Okay. So in several years ago, there had been a change of the PO box, and what looks like had happened is several people had their banks automatically sending checks to a pre-designated location to pay their property taxes. A couple years ago, there was a change in the PO box. I believe we just went to a different bank. And so there's a few people who did not pay in time. They said that they had issues with the PO box, and the county's recommendation was that the change was a couple years ago, and there wasn't a county error, and so we recommended denial on those. Excuse me. And then it was asked last week for us to take a look to see if these individuals were repeat offenders, as it were. They asked to see if it happened last week, last year. And you can see on the spreadsheet that was provided and I don't know if you want me to go through each one of them, but it appears as most of these individuals were late on their taxes last year, and there was, I believe, one that paid on time, but you can see. I don't know if you want me to read through it for you, but on the spreadsheet, it's in red on those first few items.
So you're talking about the document that's on the agenda?
Yeah.
Yes.
This thing here. There's down, it's quite a ways down. It's the recommendation letter.
Because I'm looking for a red, and that's not helping me.
And I can go over the item
It's in the,
if you want to identify
recommendation letter.
each of them in order. We can go over
Under
what
the recommendation letter.
I think that's what's
That one?
called. Yes, that's the one.
So to clarify then, because some of the concern I had.
You scroll down and get that graph.
Some of the concerns I had from our last conversation was that if they had paid the year before, or if they were late the year before, and we gave them some grace in that, then they should have known, right? So so this graph that you have right now.
So we can start at the top. Last name Lazenby.
Yeah.
In the 2020 taxes were paid on 12/8. There was a late penalty that was added, and then staff removed that.
So the question, so that they were paid late, and then they were notified. I'm assuming they were notified of the PO box change, or they paid late because they came in person. How do we know?
So Kerry McConnell, Treasurer's Office, and maybe this is a good point of the discussion, just to discuss this really quick. So let's look at that one there that says, so we entered the check on December 8th. November 30th is the deadline, and so automatically the system or the program applies the 1% or $10 penalty for a late payment or non-payment of tax. And so we can go in the month of December if we're holding on to a check, and there's a number of checks that get mailed on the 30th of November. They just can't get into the system as a current payment. Right. And so we can either have a tab for make a current payment or redemption. And redemption still has the penalty added to the total. So if we consider that, yes, this was a current payment received after November 30th, we can enter it still as a current payment, and the penalty is removed. And nor should they pay the penalty because it was considered as a current payment. So this is a prime example. We entered on December 8th. The penalty was added midnight or 12:01 on the 1st of December. But we entered that somebody in staff or somebody in the office enters that payment on December 8th without the penalty. And so you're going to see that a time or two where it says staff removes the penalty. It was considered a current payment.
Yeah, the question I had on that was, says it deny the request even though the late penalty was removed by the staff 7 days afterwards, after it was added. So that threw me off. What do you mean by it was denied, to recommend we deny the request when we already basically did that?
Well, and here's the thing that I think is specific to this particular parcel. They paid by a check in 2020. They do an e-box, as some other form of a payment mailed in. It says return the payment because it was sent to an incorrect address. In my mind, that would have had to have been maybe an e-box where they go into their bank and do a bill pay and just hadn't updated the P.O. box.
Yeah.
They're using a 2019 P.O. box, not a 2021 or an ongoing P.O. box. So this one's kind of an interesting case where, hey, they paid by a check or mailed a check into the office in 2021's payment must have possibly used a bad P.O. box gets returned back. Then when they're notified by the delinquent tax notice, the middle of October, they make the payment in 21. And so there's a column there that says what the date that they made the payment. I believe that was 12/30. So that would have had to have been paid once they received a delinquent tax notice.
So my question is then, how do they know that the P.O. box was, how would they know
Well,
the P.O. box was not the right P.O. box?
Yeah, good question. So there on the notice, the tax notice itself, there's a stub printed on the bottom. And that's where they would see if they did remit the coupon or the statement, they tear that third of a sheet off and enclose it in the number 9 envelope provided. It has the current P.O. box. In 2020, we inserted a third of a sheet insert and listed during the COVID months, said, hey, we don't want you in the office. Why don't you drop it into the mail? Hey, and we've got a new P.O. box. And then we've got some drop boxes here in the parking lot as well. Or do an e-check for free online. So we tried to notify in 2020 with a third of a sheet insert that had a number of options, encouraging them staying out of the office or out of the building, but mail it, and oh, by the way, with an arrow, I believe, or some, hey, we've got a new P.O. box. So we tried to identify 2020, there was a new P.O. box. P.O. box is printed on 20 on the coupon or the stub or payment stub. And in 21, it was printed on the payment stub.
So on this one in particular, it came in, it was late for whatever reasons, maybe and so it got the penalties and interest because it was late. It was returned and then came back.
Right.
And then we removed the penalties, the late penalties to it. And so I'm sure they think, well, everything's taken care of because it was just removed, right? There wasn't a charge to it.
In 20, we removed it because we had received, 2020, we received the payment and considered on time. In 2021, we received the payment at the end of the month of December, so it was late. So the penalty, they pay the penalty. That's what they're asking for, is the 2021 penalty to be refunded.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, so what you're recommending is deny the request is for the 2021 period. Because when I was reading, I was misreading it on a fairly regular basis, that what year was this being applied, what the denial was for.
Sure. And I know you possibly can't see that in the red, but with Adams and Terry Eisel, I thought that we were tasked to provide information what had happened in prior years on each of these.
Yep.
And so that's what we tried to do. And I know I recognize we have limited space, and maybe we should put it in a different format or even a different form. Add a new column, I don't care. But it's like I thought that we were tasked to identify what the payment process was in a prior year or years.
Or whether were they late in a prior year or so many years? Were they always on time type of thing?
Well, and the next one is a prime example. I think we put 2016 through 2020 paid by Wells Fargo e-box, meaning that they had a bill payment set up through their bank or credit union, and you go in and type the vendor as Utah County Treasurer, enter the P.O. box, Salt Lake City, Utah, or whatever the address is, right, that you're going to remit the payment to. Well, Wells Fargo turns these into an electronic payment. Rarely we receive a paper check anymore from what they call a bill pay, because they run them through an aggregator, a couple aggregators, and say, hey, let's create this as an electronic check payment, which gets pushed through an e-box system, is what they refer to their system as, meaning Wells Fargo. And so we can identify that as, hey, that's an e-box payment. That was a bill payment.
Okay.
It was initiated. So we tried to do that on several of them to say, hey, look at this one, though. They set it up as a bill pay, and chances are they used the same P.O. box 16, 17, 18, 19. We changed it in 20, 21. The second one there probably doesn't answer your first question, but the last name LUU. Yeah, she still probably has the wrong PO box in her bank or a credit union. This is going to be an ongoing problem.
The reason why I wanted you to go through it, and because in my opinion, if they made the mistake last year and they're, and it was corrected, and if they knew about it, I don't know how we would determine that or not.
Right.
Then they should be responsible this year. That's the reason why I asked for that last year.
Sure.
I don't know how I determine that off of what we have, because it's going on multiple years, right?
That's right.
So I wonder if this same group is going to show up again next year, and maybe they won't.
Again?
Maybe they won't if we just deny it and they get the penalty attached to it, right? Maybe that's what will change that thinking. Maybe that's
what I'm
along the lines
wondering.
of what you're thinking.
If they did it last year and we waived the penalty and they didn't change anything, then
And
they're not going to change until they get the penalty.
And that's why this
So
is.
are there any in here that was not the case? Is kind of the main question. Right.
So if we go to the second page, and I don't want to take your
Backside of the
let's go to that miss box. That's the same thing here. 21 was paid by an e-box, 20 was paid by an e-box, 19 was paid by an e-box. It seems to me like, here's another e-box, meaning that this is a bill pay, bill pay, bill pay. The ringless boxers, a couple of different things here. 20 was paid by a check.
Looks like Wells Fargo needs to know.
That's what I was going to say. I was actually going to say, can we reach out to Wells Fargo and just say, hey, every person who has us on their bill pay, can we update their PO box?
But it kind of goes along the same line as.
Not that that's
I don't
not
need to
our
change
responsibility.
anything. Somebody else is going to take care of that
I get
for
it.
me, and I
That's
can
not-
ask you guys to waive the penalty.
I understand that that's not our responsibility, but it may be worth just shooting them an email.
Hey, we got a different PO box.
Yeah, like FYI, a lot of your customers are getting charged fees because they're still going to the old email. Could you just anywhere it says Utah County property taxes, could you maybe flag it?
No, it's not a bad idea, but so we banked with Wells, but these are being processed through Zion's bank lockbox with the new PO box.
Right.
So it's like you close we wanted to close the PO box. Why are we getting charged for a box that we're not using any?
Right. No, I understand
there
that.
seems to be some responsibility that needs to be on a taxpayer.
No, and that's why.
Like I said, I'm not disputing that. I totally agree responsibility needs to be on them.
Right.
But at the same time, the amount of people sitting in this room and the amount that we pay them per hour, like it might just be worth throwing an email out to Wells Fargo.
I know.
So you don't see any, I don't see any on here in which it looks like it's new from last year. It looks like last year we went through I don't see any on here. Have you seen any from, and thank you for going back and doing that, because it gives us kind of a historical side, which we didn't have before. But
and Terry from the Attorney's Office from Civil Division put most of this together anyway, so
the only one I think is different, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carrie, that BS2 investments, the 2020 taxes paid online using e-check. They paid e-check for the 2020 year.
Okay.
So if they paid by e-check in 2020, they didn't get the warning.
what if they use? Oh, you're right. Okay.
I'm not saying you guys didn't do everything within your power. I'm just saying they may not have gotten the warning.
But adding the history has helped a lot. Thanks,
I
Carrie.
agree.
And I think in talking with Adam and Terry, this would probably be something good going forward as well. Yeah. A little more information up front. I know it's very difficult for you guys to make a decision on 3 sentences. And it's easy for me to say, why are we trying to give these people back their penalty when they were late anyway?
Yeah.
Right.
Multiple
So I'll
lates.
try to put the least amount of words as possible. Deny is fairly easy to write.
I'm okay to give latitude the first time.
4 letters.
But if it comes the second or third time, you begin to wonder.
And we're on the second time.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's enough space here that maybe we could add that separate column to show that history there when it has multiples.
Yeah, I agree. More information.
Like I said, I'm not requiring that we need to do anything. I'm just saying shooting Wells Fargo an email might help several people out.
For sure.
Okay, what So now going to, let's see, let me go back.
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah.
Can we go to, I want to make sure I'm on my notes anyway. Topham. Property owner alleges payment was made over the phone on November 22nd. That was within
Yes.
the time frame.
Yeah, so this is a little different case here. So a couple years ago, we've set up, you can do an IVR phone payment, interactive voice response. So if you don't have a computer or you don't feel like, I don't want to put my information, go online, let me call and talk to a computer. And it makes a lot of sense. But you do have to plug in your serial number on your phone, and they'll want your routing number and your account number. And you're plugging these on your phone. And the bank, and so the payment happened on, so they did that on November 22nd, and they did it with an e-check, which was free. Great option. I get a notice back on the 29th that there was an error. It's a bank code stating that there was is an unable to locate account. So chances are they fat fingered a number. And so I backed that thing out on the 29th. If it's difficult. If you did that online, it gives you an option to put your an email in there. Instant Payments would send you an email and say, I'm sorry, the payment didn't go through for these reasons. It's very difficult to enter an email over the phone. And so 29th, I back it out, and then we notify them December 16th with the delinquent postcard, and it gets paid. Again on the 16th of December.
So they paid immediately when they got the postcard.
Yes. Well, yes. And that's the good thing about it. So by law, we send a delinquent postcard by the end of December. And there's no point in ruining, somebody's holiday, so we try to get it out, right
Well,
before.
you have at least, 9 days before it ruins their holiday.
So this one is a little different. It is not a bill pay. It was actually used the phone pay system. But unfortunately, I think it's difficult to type an account or a routing number on your phone.
So for me on this one, I think it's important that the citizens' intent, I think their intent was to pay on time. And because of that, there was a mistake. I would be in favor of granting this one as for the penalty only, which is $20.95.
Sure. And that kind of goes along, with County Treasurer Kim Jackson. I don't believe that he would want to discourage anybody from using maybe the e-check option, online, free, even do it over the phone. Here again, it's training somebody to do it online, keep them out of the office.
I'm going to agree with you on that one, Commissioner Lee. I think that we should.
Could you include a form letter with that, basically highlighting what you just said, that you send back?
To who?
To the delinquent account.
Now, I don't know, there's 14,000 delinquent accounts. It'd be difficult to pop that one out.
We have one case.
As you respond to
one case.
I'd encourage him to come and ask for the
As you respond to
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
With the one case.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, and then on Whitesides, this property owner alleges mistakenly paid the tax on the wrong property.
Oh, yes.
Now, hopefully they didn't sell it like the last one we had. But anyway, it's they paid it on the wrong property. When they realized it, they received a delinquent property tax notice. But if that's true, then we should have
Then we've got their
more money
money
on another side, on another piece of property. I'm just wondering if I just want to make sure that we've gone down through
'cause
that,
if
and that's
they've
actually true, and we actually had money on that one.
If they've identified
that
which
one
property it
here.
was, it should be able to transfer
think
that
they got
over.
that
But
one
we have to
back.
notify both owners what we just did.
Yeah.
Check.
We're gonna look up the details here, but I do believe that they got that money back. They put it on the wrong parcel. The serial number had a mortgage, so it can be accessed through their escrow. So I don't I don't remember what happened there, but that one did not get sold. I think they still currently own
Thank
it.
goodness.
Didn't get sold within 7
Yeah,
days.
what's this one right here? Yeah, I believe that what happened there, I believe he says here that he thought he paid the taxes for a property and listed the ID, but it's a rental property. He received a delinquent notice and realized that he paid the taxes on my personal home, which had an escrow account that should have been paid by the mortgage company. What happened there is once the money comes in, it's considered paid, and then the escrow company, the mortgage companies, when they pay on the 30th of November, it comes back and says, hey, this one's been paid. We'll push that money right back to that same mortgage company. And so I believe he paid the one late, but the other one, he had two pieces, and the other one got paid.
They got pushed
flipped
back.
them around.
So on this one too, I think the intent is there, seems to be well documented. The money did come in, it was pushed back. That $22.92 penalty, I'm inclined to waive that.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Waive that one.
The next one I'm looking at, oh, darn it. Hold on. Okay, I just exited out of my whole thing here, so. The next one is Schrodier. As I'm trying to look it back up.
Yeah, that's 49-153-0003.
Sorry, I exited out, so I'm gonna have to go back into the whole system to get to it. If you want to start talking about it, though.
Yeah, this one, column says he has paid. Paid it, and these are requesting a abatement of $10. We're denying a request, or recommending we're denied a request finding no legal or factual error. But the summary is a veteran abatement normally covers the entire property tax each year. Property went up above the value limit for the veteran's abatement, so you had a balance after the abatement was applied. The limit is $220,000. The value of his property is assessed at $230,000. Didn't know that there was a limit.
Yeah, the veterans abatement has a top-end limit is based on the max amount and the veterans percentage, where his top end was 220, so he was probably like a 90% disabled veteran.
Okay.
Home prices are rising, so which means that the abatement is, and when you have homes that rise 10% over year for the last few years, eventually it's going to outstrip the abatement's ability to abate all of the, well, sorry, it's not an abatement, it's an exemption. The exemption's ability to exempt all of the value that it can. So this
Does
is
it abate or exempt the first 220?
it's an exemption because it's reducing the amount of value that they're taxed on. So it's just, I mean, it does the same thing, but it has a different way we apply it. So
Says he was not aware and he had taxes owing until he received the delinquent notice. Taxes and penalty have been paid, requesting abatement of refund of the late penalty, which is $10.
Yep. Yeah. So it would have, if he applied, and I believe he's been receiving this exemption for a while. So on his tax notice, it would have shown that he owed taxes. But of course, when you have been paying taxes for a while, I'm sure the imperative to actually check your notice and go, hey, I wonder if I paid taxes this year is pretty low. To be frank, there's really no legal basis to remove the penalty. He's late. He knows he's late. You know, it is the veteran's responsibility to pay that, but you can certainly see why.
I didn't know there was a limit there. So
yeah, there's
I'm a veteran, and I just didn't realize.
As a disabled veteran, there is a max value. The only veteran class that does not have a max value would be the surviving spouse of an armed serviceman or woman that was killed in action. In that case, we abate all value. But for a disabled veteran, there is an upper max limit.
How about What, is that 100% disabled, 90% disabled?
Yeah, 100% disabled. With the killed in action, there is no max amount. With a disabled veteran, there's a maximum amount of, I believe it's like 260,000 or something like that. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it's pretty generous. If he and of course that's if you're 100% disabled. If you're 90%, we take 90% times that by that amount, and so on and so forth, all the way down to 10%. So
Did you say 260?
I think like 260, 265. I don't have the number off the top of my head. I'm sure if Vicky's watching, she's probably yelling at her screen right now. So
Who sets that?
the state does.
Legislature.
The state tax commission does that, and I believe it goes up. They set a base amount when they set it years ago, and then it goes up by a certain percentage every year. I believe it's based on the inflation index or consumer price index, or I know it's tied to something like that measures, the cost of living increase adjustment.
Okay.
So you can get outstripped just by the jumping that's going on now with values and inflation.
Yeah, with values and growth right now, I imagine we'll see a few more veterans who find themselves in the situation where, even though they have a much higher percentage, all the way up to 100%, home values are increasing dramatically. So, yeah.
So we're saying deny his request for the refund of $10?
Yeah, I mean, my office doesn't weigh in on these, but the attorney's office is saying there's no legal basis to
But I don't think that
waive
I
it.
personally wouldn't take off the tax.
Right.
But the penalties and fees,
Yeah.
I would be willing to look at that, but not the tax.
And I don't think, through my reading, I don't think he's asking for the taxes to be waived, because obviously, he gets a certain benefit and he used it all up. So he's just saying, hey, I didn't know I had to pay. Can I get my $10 back? So
I'm biased, but I'm inclined to waive the penalty and the fees on that.
Okay. Well, we got to do what we can for the veterans too, I think, on it. I mean, we're already giving some
Significant.
exemption to it. Okay.
Again, this follows a basic philosophy. If they've made a mistake one time, to give some latitude here.
Yeah.
If it repeats, that's when we start to.
But we'll have to be consistent, because we'll see some others.
Yeah, so we just have to make sure
that's
you
the thing,
remind
is
us
when we
that's
start
what
down
we're
that
doing.
path. We're
Yeah.
starting down that path.
Yeah.
Yeah, first time, second strike, you're out.
Yeah.
Yes.
With the way inflation has gone, I think people could use a break.
Okay, the hydroponics. So this one, I'm getting to it. See, property owner alleges and provides evidence that the 2020 tax payment was mailed on November 30th, 2020. Payment was postmarked on December 1st, 2020. Owner was unaware of late penalty and interest owing for the 2020 year until the year's taxes were due. So I guess the question I have on this, as we saw on the very first one, when we started, or first or second one, there was a period of time between that first and that 8th that the office just took it off, but this one came in about that similar. So I'm wondering why the office just didn't do the same thing.
Yes, so we've always held, state law states that property taxes are due November 30th of each year. If you postmark, if it is after the 30th, we consider that late, and we would have taken that as a redemption, where we would have included that penalty. And that's what happened here. We entered that payment on the 11th of December 2020, and it was short. So we pay the penalty gets paid first, and then the remaining amount goes to pay the taxes. And so it was short by that penalty amount because it was received late. We keep the envelopes for anything received after November 30th or December 1st forward. And then looking at their history, 2021, they also paid late. So they cleaned up the 2020 remaining tax, penalty, and interest, and all of 21's with penalty on December 30th of 21. So they received a delinquent postcard as well, showing that they still owed taxes for 20 with the penalty and now interest for the entire year for their 2020 taxes. And then they paid their 2021 taxes a month late as well.
Oh.
So they, so this
they're
is a
not in
little
that-
bit different.
They're not in that gap that you're talking
No.
about, because I'm looking at that.
They're not.
That Lizen by.
Right.
And theirs was the staff took it off when it was between the 1st and the 8th.
But we had received that and considered it a timely payment.
Yeah.
On that one. This one here, the postmark was December 1st. And so we've always considered that late. Unfortunately, people think that maybe they could drop it, and I don't know what happened here. Maybe they just dropped it in their neighborhood mailbox. It doesn't get picked up on the 30th. It gets picked up on the 1st. It's postmarked on the 1st. We encourage people towards the end of the month and in November, make sure you bring it into the post office and make sure it gets postmarked on the 30th. You can mail it, and we will honor the postmark. It's considered as current. But once it's the postmark is stamped after the due date, it's considered late.
So on this Lisenby one, I'm just trying to make sure I understand it. It says here in the notes, the 2020 tax was paid by by Nancy with a check on 12/8.
Right.
Which is past the 1st, obviously.
Right.
Which is late.
Right.
Late penalty was added on the 1st, but the late penalty was removed by staff on the 8th. So the 30th is the deadline. 1st is when the late comes on, but the staff removed it on the 8th.
Right. So we had it either in hand or the postmark was before the 30th on that Lisenby one. Where
She paid it on the 8th.
Well, but we entered it on the 8th in our office. And so you can imagine people will they pay their taxes. There's no point in paying them early, is there? So you might as well pay it on the 30th.
Yeah.
Or bring it in or drop it in. We have trays in there on November 29th and November 3rd. We just don't have the staff to sit there and process everything that gets received on or right before the due date. And so at that point, we retain a couple of temporaries to help us push those payments in before we can get a delinquent postcard out. And so that the first one that you're referring to, we received the payment before or on time, or before the due date or on time.
Okay, that's
this one is a delinquent one, where the delinquent by 1 day, and some people will say, well, give me a grace period.
Yeah.
Well, if you start giving them the 1st, what about the 2nd? And then there's the 8th, and then there's the 30th.
It just says 2020 taxes paid by Nancy Lisenby with a check on 12/8.
Right. And so that was entered on the 8th, but it was a timely or a payment that was considered on time.
So it's reading wrong then. She didn't pay it on the 8th.
Right.
It was entered on the 8th.
It was entered on the 8th.
And on this Hyponex one, just to confirm what Carrie was saying, it's postmarked December 1st. That was sent certified mail as well. So it appears as if it wasn't dropped in a drop box. It was. They went and paid for it. They went and paid for it.
Okay.
Your thoughts
Go to
on
the
that?
next one? I'll just go to the next one.
Okay.
Leave that one the way it is.
Okay.
So the next one,
Yes.
LKS, is that what you said?
Yes. Is that what you're looking
Yep.
at? Yeah.
LKS AG. Okay, a representative of former property owner is requesting a best interest abatement of the balance owing on several Greenbelt rollback accounts. The title company requested estimated rollback billing prior to the closing the transaction. But by the time the transaction was complete and a withdrawal from the Greenbelt was recorded, the amount owing changed substantially. The estimated rollback billing were for years 2016 through 2020, but the actual billings were for 2017 through 2021 due to the timing of the recording of the withdrawal. The company title paid what they had funds for, which left an approximate $29,900 balance owing. Since the transaction has been completed, they no longer have funds to pay the balance. No county error is alleged, and they actually alleged error on their own part. So they recognize there's error on their own part. I just kind of bring this one up as, again, there's no error on the county's part. But what about that recording? How do we do that? I'm just curious at how this happens when from 26 to 2020 back to 5 years again, and then from 2017 to 2021. I just don't know how that. I don't know what happened on this one. Is what I'm asking.
You know, I don't know if there's a member of staff here, but I will say that one of the comments that was made was that the title company was the party that made the error. The estimate requested by Access Title clearly shows the steps that must be taken to create an account for payment. But you know, I don't know a lot about that process to be able to answer your question very, very clearly.
Okay. It's kind of interesting that, I mean, depending on when you actually do the rollback, it's either $29,900 or not.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm a little confused by that one, so.
Andrea Allen, the recorder, and I do know a little bit about the Greenbelt other than, we'll go see if Diane Garcia is still in the office, but depending on what time you get an estimate, what time of the year you get the estimate, it's either for current year or when the tax rolls close, it's for the future year. So you can, at one time of the year, get a 2016 through, this one was 2020.
Yeah.
And then if it actually, everything comes out and they do the withdrawal after that May date, I think it's in the end of May 23rd, then it goes for 2017 through the next year. It starts that 5-year. Is she here? She's not here. But also, you cannot pay on an estimate. You have to have a bill. And an estimate indicates that it's due for 30 days. Obviously, from what they have indicated here, they got an estimate. For whatever reason, things went beyond that 30 days. They did not record a withdrawal. The withdrawal is what, in the Greenbelt process, initiates that billing, which would have been that difference in year. It would have been the updated fees because you pay a different taxable amount. They would have probably paid taxable amount in 2016 versus not Greenbelt in 2017. So that time frame in the middle of the year on Greenbelt makes it kind of tricky, but also it is an estimate. The estimate states very clearly that it is an estimate, and the treasurer's office cannot accept payment without a bill. So they would have paid on a bill and short paid that bill once the withdrawal had been recorded. And as soon as they record the withdrawal, they go to the assessors and it gets created a bill right then. There's no waiting for it to go through, the abstracting process. So
Did you say the month of May is where it defines as to what year it's
May
assessed?
gets kind of tricky.
Is it the 1st of May, the end of May?
23rd. And I don't have the paperwork. I don't know what
Buyers
time.
and sellers realize that?
Is that this one? Yeah. This was a title company, right? Let me see just in Adam's paperwork if there's an estimate here.
I would say you would time your sale
So-
on a date, or at least you should.
This estimate looks like it was actually created on 6/7 and was valid through 7/7. And it's very clear in the upper right-hand corner to contact the assessor before paying. And the estimated value was obviously through 7/7. And it looks like there were a couple of different parcels on there. So, again, like I said, it's tricky as to what year they process through, because you can pay full rollback for the current year that you're asking for, and then you go back the 5. But Diane Garcia would have to give you the specifics on her timing on that. But I know the timing is tricky based on that May deadline, as well as all of the information does indicate the estimate is good for 1 month, and there has to be a withdrawal to get a bill created to have payment accepted. And so they must have just short paid.
I've only been at this for 15 months, but is this fairly common, the confusion about May 23 as being a cutoff date?
Generally not.
So most people realize that cutoff date.
Well, and like I said, I'm not sure. Diane would have to speak to that cutoff date. I know that plays into how she calculates that 5th year. But the title companies all are very aware that an estimate is just that. It is an estimate.
Yeah.
And a bill has to be created.
It's just not a small amount of change there either.
It's not a small amount of change. Yeah, and that's unfortunate.
Bert, who are you, Bert?
Bert Garfield from the assessor's office. We had 2 people who are supposed to be online that were able to speak to this, but I don't know if you can see him online.
I don't. No, we don't have
Tim
any.
Stevens or Diane Garcia is. I don't know. Maybe they're not there at all. Do you see Diane's name there? Okay, Jim can comment on this. Jim, can you hear me? I think you're muted. Jim?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I can explain beyond what Andrea went through, other than the rollback was paid based off that estimate, and that was insufficient to cover. So
it says in my notes, it says the title company requested a rollback estimate and the amount changed is due to the timing of the closing, and an updated rollback was not obtained before paying the bill.
So the estimates are just purely estimates. They're just it's just your best estimate at that time, because it says that their estimates expired on July 7th. Mm-hmm. They didn't file for another withdrawal till July 21st, so there's obviously some gap in there. Mm-hmm. And they would still have to go through an estimate and then actually go through the withdrawal to get like what Andrew was saying, to actually get a
we try to tell people this estimate is simply an estimate. Yeah. It is not meant to tell you exactly what it is. But a lot of people are curious to know, what will our rollback be? So that's why we do it. But it's not meant to be a bill.
And so I guess the other question I might have then is that if their estimate went till July 7th, how long are their estimates good for?
I think it's 30 days. Does that sound right, Jim?
30?
She said 30 days and May 23rd.
30 days.
So
30 days. So if it's May 23rd.
And it could only go through June 23rd.
Then why would we do an estimate that has the wrong years on it?
The May 23 defines which year.
There's a cutoff point in there.
If we're starting an estimate in May, then it should have the time frame from the past, not.
No. May is just a date. Sorry, Andrea Allen. May is just a date that adjusts the 5-year look.
Right.
This estimate was requested on June 6th, so it was way after the May date anyway.
Oh,
so
okay.
May just changes what years you can
So they're
look
still
at.
within, so their year argument then that they're saying is still inaccurate because you were doing, the estimate was being done with, in the years that we're looking at now, not this 2016.
The first estimate looked at 16 through 20.
How could it do
the
that if
only
it's past that
estimate.
date? If it's past the 23rd, how could it do that?
Because, and that's where Diane needs to give you the information.
We can't continue
There
this.
is a May date that plays into how rollbacks are figured. Not all rollbacks, because if you ask for an estimate, it depends on how you're going to pay, because you could stay on or you could come off.
Right.
And sometimes they will stay on and have that lower rate with the higher rollback. Sometimes they will come off, pay that current year at the higher rate, and then pay lower for the 5. It just depends on how they work that out. And Diane is the one to give you the best information on that. I just know that those dates play into how it calculates what years are the look back. But specifically how she does that, I'm not aware.
I can just add that for Garfield Assessor's Office, the estimation process is pretty automated. All you have to do is put in the information. There's not a lot of human intervention in that process. So the data was correct calculated.
And who puts it in? I mean, it's automated, but
a person has to enter the parcel number and the
parcel number and then the automation. So
and
if we're past the May 23rd, then it would seem like the 5 years would be, different than before May 23rd.
Yeah, but
we should probably continue.
We could continue this.
I'd like to continue this. That way we can talk
But
ahead of time and meet again, separately and then talk about it.
I do hear there's a note in there that says the title company admits to the error on their part.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Let's for now, I'm going to propose we just continue that particular item.
Okay. Last one is the Heritage Behavioral Health.
Bert Harvey, the other Bert, Auditor's Office. So Heritage Behavioral Health Systems is a 501c3 tax-exempt organization. They have been receiving that exemption since they applied, which was in 2020. So when a exempt organization or charitable organization that can qualify for a property tax exemption acquires property, by state statute, they have 30 days to apply for that exemption after acquisition or by March 1st, whichever is later. So Heritage Behavioral Health acquired the property that is in question in August of 2019, which means, on August 19th of 2019, in fact, so which means they would have had to apply for their exemption by the following month, by September 19th or 20th, depending on how the 30 days worked out that year. And in order to have qualified for the exemption for 2019, they did not. They applied for the exemption starting in 2020. They made an erroneous assumption that the exemption would be backwards, would apply through 2019, including 2020, and that's not simply how the law works. I don't believe they asked that question of our office. Had they done that, we would have informed them that that they would be paying the 2019 taxes because they did not apply for that exemption. They get the exemption in the year they apply. They have to renew that exemption every year with the continuing statements that we deal with in Board of Equalization. So there's probably no legal basis for removing the tax because they simply did not yet qualify for the exemption because they had not yet applied, and so therefore we had not made a determination whether they did qualify or not. There's no doubt that they qualify now, but they have to make an application. We can't grant an exemption we're not tracking what every 501c3 acquires property and go, okay, we're automatically exempting them. It's just they do have to make they do have to make an application and reapply that every year.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Mine too. Thank you.
How about the property just before that? The Solis one?
The Solis, I don't think that's mine.
This one is the owner. They've been paying a circuit breaker abatement for several years.
Okay.
And the husband was injured and passed away in December 21. The sudden hospitalization death kept her from submitting her abatement application by a due date, requesting in the best interest good cause abatement equal to the amount she would have received had her application been submitted on time. She's offering a $100 payment as a settlement. Do we need the $100 settlement, or can we just simply abate the entire amount?
I think you guys
because of the unique
approval of that, right?
circumstances.
I don't think there's any issue there. The attorney's office is recommending approval on that one. Our office would agree with that.
Yeah, the recommendation says after the $100 payment is received. So I was wondering, am I misreading that? Are we accepting her $100, or should we simply say, don't worry about paying that $100, just approve all and abate all these taxes, penalties, and interest?
My understanding is that Adirondack County Attorney's Office that we would accept the $100.
Should we just simply not even accept that, just given the circumstances?
You can make that determination, and that can be done if you find that it's in the best interest of the
I'm thinking of
county.
the best interest of the individual here. I don't know what the other two think on that one.
I don't mind doing that. I just, it's a settlement. That means that it's already been negotiated too.
Right.
Speaking here, so it's kind of an interesting one where it's already been settled, and we want to settle it further in the best interest.
Yeah,
I could go either way, I guess, on this one. Just frankly, if we want to see that as the best human interest for it.
What have we done historically in the past?
I think we've just accepted their settlements. If it's settled on, then we just accept the settlement.
I was just thinking I was just thinking of the extraordinary circumstance in which it came up.
Yeah. Because I don't
Make it unique to others.
see they're asking for it. It would just be, I mean, the only thing that they're looking for is to settle.
Well, when I asked what have we done in the past, I mean, in the past, have we asked people to pay a $100 settlement? Or is that something they came up with? But in the past, we've just debated it.
And on top of that, was it an extraordinary condition for the settlement based on an extraordinary case, or is it just because of a natural routine of way of taking care of things that were late that you accept a settlement?
Yeah.
In this case, I'm thinking of the death, hospitalization.
Yeah, there are extraordinary circumstances.
Sure.
So.
Carrie McCall in Treasurer's Office. I think historically they've made payments of $58.75 last year, $41, $33, $119. I'm wondering, the abatement didn't quite cover the entire amount of tax, so I'm wondering
Okay.
if she just kind of threw that dollar amount and say, we've always paid something.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
But I don't think that it's ever, it did zero out in the year of 17, but any
But in
time
the last
after
5
that,
years, everything has had
there's
something.
always been a small amount that they've ended up paying. The abatement didn't take
When
care
I
of
see
it.
the word settlement, I'm thinking of a negotiated agreement based on some
And she's probably guessing that if the abatement
Right.
had gone through, her payment would have been around $100.
Right. And
So I think that sounds fair.
Oh, I see what you're saying now. I misread that line. Okay.
yeah, and if you wanted to get really exact, we could actually run the numbers and come up with an exact figure of what she would have paid based off
I
of
don't
that.
want
But
you to
that
spend
sounds
staff time on that.
No, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm fine with the $100 knowing
Okay,
that.
then with
Okay.
that, I'll withdraw the idea.
Thank you, Carrie.
So I'll make a motion then, if I can get through this motion. Let's see if I can do this or not.
Excited to hear this motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the tax actions included in the recommendation letter on item number 35, except for the items Topham, White House, Schroeder, in that we grant those and that we continue the LKSAG.
Mm-hmm. That's what I have.
Is that the end of the motion?
Yep.
Okay, then I will second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that passes 3-0. That was a long hour, but well worth the time.
I think that was it.
Did we hold
We held item,
38?
Yeah, we tabled item number 38 to be discussed in closed session
Closed
as the
session
lease.
to bring it back.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we'll bring it back after closed
Okay.
session.
Then I think, if I'm not misreading, that we are finished with our regular agenda.
Go into closed session? Right.
Yep. Okay, we're now moved.
Public comments?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Are there any public comments here? Any online, Alice? Okay, then we're moving into closed session. Thank you, everyone.